Alright, I am on the adventure to replace this GoPower charge controller that comes stock in the standard solar Ember 190 MDB. Now, I didn't have a lot of play there when I took those screws out just to take a look to see how it was connected. So I just take the fridge out. The fridge is out. Kind of look back here. You've got a positive and negative that is going to the front into the battery box. On the standard solar, it's not underneath the couch. So this is heading up towards the front. And then I've got two sets of wires, which I followed. Obviously, one comes from the roof, from the solar panel, and there's another set which I've followed. It looks like it is the solar on the side that is in the little plumbing area, which I'll show a picture of. So I'm going to disconnect these and replace all of this with a Victron setup. Alright, so this is the solar side port right here, and so that heads back to that controller and plugs in with the solar panel. So I wouldn't have wanted to have mixed voltage or anything on the solar panels, but I might add another controller to that someday, who knows. So in place of this, I'm going to add a little wood panel that has one battery monitoring, which I'll show you in a second. It's a little circle, I don't know, like maybe 2-inch, 2.5-inch circle, and also a charge controller monitor. So I'm going to have both circles right there. The battery monitoring requires a cable that I was able to fish a string down into here. Took a little while. That string took a little bit, but I have it kind of coming out here underneath. So that string, I gotta kind of tie these together whenever I ultimately fish it out. But you can kind of see all the cables and wiring that heads back there, that section. And then I ran a separate string that actually comes over here into the water heater area. Obviously this is storage on the standard, and then that string I just fished all the way through there so that I can ultimately run the battery monitor cable up to the front box. Alright, here's my mess of Victron stuff that I am going to update. So this is the Victron MPPT 150. I could have probably got a 30 on this, but maybe someday I'll update the panels. We've got your solar and your battery to your battery, and the thing that monitors that is this little MPPT controller. Comes into that package right there. Didn't come with a cable, so I did have to buy this, what do they call that? VE Direct, I think is what they call it. So VE Direct will go into that little port right there. We'll see how that works. I don't think I'll use these, so I'm just gonna make a hole that's about that big. And I still got a lot of reading to do. They provide some crazy amount of manuals. Like that's a big manual. This is what came with the MPPT control monitor. So I got some time to go through those. This is how they say to wire it up. Actually, this is the BMV 712, I believe is what it is. Yeah, there it is, BMV 712. So that is this system over here. That's the battery monitoring system, which, has the same kind of style and size. So those two will go together in place of the GoPower. And then they got a shunt that comes with it to monitor the battery, and this is the cable that I'm going to have to run from the battery area all the way to the back of where the current GoPower solar is, and why I ran that string so I can fish that through there and then power that powers this battery. Again, not going to use that thing, but I've got some reading to do before I start the install, so we'll see how it goes. I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to cut that out, mount those. You got your battery monitor here and your MPPT control there. Alright, I just need that little bit of paint on there. Didn't come out too bad. I'll make that black and fit right in that hole. Well, it actually doesn't look too bad as raw wood, but I think I'm still going to paint it up a little bit. Alright, just quick update. There's not a lot of room behind the fridge for the new control panel, the Victron, charge controller. But, so I decided I would just put the solar and battery wires up into here. So, eventually I'll probably put something over that so it's all protected, but here you've got the green and white that go to the battery, and then the blue and white that come down from the solar. I went ahead and just kind of terminated the one that comes from the side port just because I ain't going to use that yet, and I wouldn't probably run it all the way back to here. I'll probably put a charge controller up towards the front, or maybe underneath the sofa. What I did is that string, it's kind of a phone kind of cable that comes with the battery monitor system. This goes right to the shunt. So I gotta still install that, but that'll come out here with the, I never remember what this thing is called, but the one that goes to the charge controller. And I used the string that I had ran through that hole there. I still got a wad of string down there. I'm going to leave a bunch of string in here just in case I need to up the gauge of my wiring or something, just so it's a little easier. Now I did do something different, is because that big bundle of wires with the orange one and everything, that actually kind of, for whatever reason, goes off this way. That black and yellow one kind of go off into that direction. And so what I did instead, which was way easier, is just run that right there through that hole. Instead of trying to figure out how to get it down there, I just ran it up in there. There's a hole that goes pretty much right to that little cavity right there. So it was way easier. You can kind of see it. Can't really see it there, but there's behind the drawers, which made it easier. And I pulled that string all the way through over to here. Now I got my battery monitor cable over here, and next step is to figure out which hole I'm going to go through to get that into the front battery box. Alright, I'm under the trailer looking for a hole. Now, this is kind of where everything runs into here. Pretty foamed up, but I noticed this one, which actually has a pretty decent size gap right there. I'm gonna go back inside and look at that. That might be where I run this, because then it goes back up inside the battery box right there. Alright, I took a little bit of a break just because I realized I needed a cable, but I did run that tan one up through that hole that I talked about previously, but now that's coming into the shunt, and I got the power cable hooked up to B1, which is the first one there on the left. I had this mounted, but I couldn't figure out the pairing code and realized it's on the back of the actual display, not on the back of this. So anyway, this goes to that display, and I can show that in a second. But the cable I needed was this additional negative right here, because this interrupts this was one that used to go to the battery right there. You can set that shunt up with the app, or you can set it up through here, through settings right there. I set it up through the app. That's what my problem was, is the Bluetooth pairing. If you're looking for the pin to pair, it's on the back of this thing. In the manual it says the default is 6 zeros. That did not work for me, and it took me a long time to figure out where that pin was. So anyway, it's on the back of there. So yeah, that's working good. I had this one hooked up. My battery's charged, but I had this one hooked up, but I want to reroute something. The cables, I realized, so I got one that has, you know, a straight 180, so it comes off, and that's going to be in the way of my fridge. So the way they design these are weird, so I'm actually going to reroute it. I had my 90 degree up there going to this charge controller, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, it doesn't, the 90 degree don't fit right there, so I'm actually going to cut right there so I can fit that 90 degree right there. That'd probably be a design change I would make with those cables from Victron, is that the 90 degree can't go up because of that little notch right there, so it has to go down, or it has to be the 180 sticking out. All right, we got them both running. You know, my favorite thing is just to start jinkily cutting stuff up, but I took a Dremel and I was able to cut this plastic out. My hope is I don't ever have to take it out, because it's probably all melted together and then it'll probably never line back up. But I do like the 90 degree angle better right there, and I would say, Victron, why don't you design your cables to go up or something? But there we go. Okay, got the fridge installed and turned on now. So the fridge always run off battery even with that red disconnect switch on, but you can now kind of start seeing this will run 46 hours on a fully charged battery. It's consuming about 40 watts from the battery, and then solar, whoops, looks to be about 81. All right, well, I'll play around with that. That's kind of cool. Okay, something I haven't really looked at so much is the app, but this is the actual BMV. This is the battery's 100%. It's pulling in, there's that 40-ish, 42 watts right there. Come on. Oh, there we go. And it looks like we've got one day, 12 hours with that refrigerator running. Now let's look. This is the home screen of the app, where I set up a smart network that includes the BMV 712 and the smart solar charge controller. They're both connected Bluetooth. You can see kind of quick diagnostics there. We can go into the charge controller. See, it's letting in about 80 watts. Still an absorption. But we'll keep playing around with that. I don't know much about solar and batteries and electric, but super curious about it and want to keep learning. All right, last thing I'm going to install is this little kit that protects the wires on the bottom that Victron makes. I thought that was a nice thing, especially in a high trafficked area such as my fridge. So that will go over top of those connectors and it locks those wires into place. All right, got that little protector in there. I think it looks pretty good. It holds cables down in there pretty good. And so that's what this right here is. Kind of holds the cables against that backing right there. So I would suggest putting that on prior to mounting to the wall. That's what the directions say, actually.